although your passion is in what you're doing, you can get sick of it quick. I think that's kind of why I've sort of transitioned my focus into cows. I just don't want to push myself to a limit to where it's not enjoyable. I started out with dairy cows and we put babies on them, and a lot of times I would let them raise them for quite a bit. All milk is a very scary thing to people. We went from struggling to sell maybe 5 gallons a week to now I keep adding cows because I don't know if we can meet demand.
So you are Amelia,
Yep.
and this is JW Farm.
It is?
And you have a small dairy herd where you're selling local milk.
Correct.
So like how big is your farm? Kind of give me like the 30,000 foot view of what you've got going on.
So we've got about 40 acres here. The back half of it we actually don't use. Pretty much operate just on 15 acres.
Okay.
We've got, we actually just acquired some hay field here. But we've got probably 7 acres of hay field, another 7 acres of pasture, and then we've got a little 2-acre lot here that we've got, the cows that we milk and who we don't milk, we start calves on. So whether they're from the stockyard, that's what I was into at one point in time because I worked at the stockyard, and so I had good access to calves.
For sure.
But you don't always get the best quality. You don't know if they've had colostrum. You don't know if are working our way away from that and are pushing towards getting calves that we know what they've had, where they've come from, that they've had a good start. So we milk per our demand, and then we have calves on everybody else.
So you've got cows out here.
Yeah.
So you've got Jerseys mainly and a giant brown Swiss who I thought was a bull because she's so big.
We've got two dry Jerseys and a brown Swiss. They calve between April and May. This is Rain. We nicknamed her the pasture princess. You know how a cat shakes water off their water off their feet? She does that with mud. She's not a.
She likes to be
wants
clean.
To be in the dry, exactly. So we got her.
She is so pretty,
She's
though.
Beautiful. We got her.
Yes, you know you're so pretty.
We got her in Siler City about 2 months ago. Cookie down there is actually one of my jerseys, my older jerseys out here. It's her. So that jersey right behind Ellis there.
Oh, okay. The one that's standing with a beautiful little platform or profile view.
If you remember Tiger King. When that came out, Carol Baskin's Carol, that's what we named her after. Because at the time she was
a little crazy.
Yeah. She's typical Jersey. She's just attitude. But that is her calf, so we're milking her as well. Of course, we've got the horses out there that do their own thing. I used to be big into riding, and then I started on nurse cows, basically. So buying calves and putting them on, and then I just fell in love with it, and that's why we're here today.
So yeah, I've never heard that term before, having nurse calves. What does that mean?
So typically the dairy industry, obviously, they do not keep their calves on their cows.
Right.
Because they still feed the calves milk. Typically they sell bull calves, and if they're Holsteins, a lot of times they go to McDonald's. Jerseys, it really just depends, but they keep over their heifers but sell their bull calves, which is typically why you get a lot of boys. Like I said, when I worked at the stockyard, dairies would bring their calves in, or you may have the random farmer that just didn't, maybe the cow died or he couldn't get the calf started, and so they would bring it. And you can see Cash there. She has 3 calves on her right now. She produces about 5 gallons a day, and they keep her nursed down. So this came from a local farmer here. This calf, he is a Highland cross, Highland Angus cross, and he actually came from my very first bottle calf that a friend up in Floyd, Virginia has been holding on to for me. As a calf, she was stunted and very small, did not want her to get bred by a big bull. So I took her up to her Highland bull, and this is what we got.
He's pretty darn cute. He's nice and fluffy. He's got a big head.
But she did not take him. So we brought him down, and I was milking Cash at the time. So we got him, and then 3 days later we ended. It just, God always has a plan for you.
It does, yeah, he does. And so these calves are on a cow that you have in milk. Why would you do that? Because the reason why conventional dairies pull the calves off is so that they can milk the cows for human consumption. Why are you putting a calf on a cow that you're also still milking?
So we actually don't milk her now.
Okay,
we,
that was
we
where I
don't.
was at.
Yeah, we don't milk her now. And I mean, that's the issue with keeping calves on cows that you're milking is calves like to get into all sorts of things, and so you're introducing bacteria that could and for pasteurized milk, I don't guess it's that big of a deal, but when you're selling raw milk, it's a very big deal.
Right, for sure.
You have to keep, our cows get tested once a month. We send off milk for coliform and SEC. If those are elevated, then we know we have an issue going on, whether it's mastitis or if there's, they can give lots of bacteria.
So why would you not have her in milk anymore? If she is giving like 5 gallons a day, is it because you just don't have that demand? You want those calves?
No, it definitely wasn't that. We had the demand. I was milking her and Sugar, who we've just dried off. She's outside.
Okay.
She's in our dry pen. So I was milking both of them, but my heart, like I said, when I started this, we started raising calves. And calves it's almost like putting a child on breast milk versus formula. Not that there's anything wrong with either one of them, but it's been proven that breast milk has, as far as antibodies, everything that the mother has been subjected to gets passed into that. And it's the same thing.
So the calves are typically healthier when they're on milk.
Not to mention milk replacer is expensive. So if you look at, and I started out as well with beef cows. This past year I sold all my beef cows, which wasn't a lot. It was only 3 of them. We sold all of them and started buying up, more dairy cows, because that one cow, even though it takes a lot more to feed her, you're looking at 3.5% of their body weight in roughage grain, whatever it is you're feeding them. It takes a lot to feed them.
Yeah.
But they can raise 3 or 4. And I could probably put another calf on this.
So if your heart is with the calves, then what you're saying is you're going to raise these calves up and have them for beef?
Yeah,
like for
so
meat?
we actually just sent 2 off to our local butcher, both of which we raised here. So we typically we don't sell it. I don't have enough room to do that. Finishing a cow takes a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of space if you're going to do it on pasture.
So what we do with these calves most of the time is we sell them to go on to stockyards to be finished for beef.
Your bread and butter on your farm is the milk. And you have other cows and milk.
Well, and that's the thing.
I see.
We've got 7 dairy cows, but we don't sell enough milk and I'll be honest with you, we started about 1.5 years ago selling milk. We do herd shares. Herd shares in North Carolina are what are legal, and that was the way that we wanted to go. You can do pet milk as well, but we wanted to go with herd shares.
Yeah.
So we sell about 40 gallons a week.
Wow.
And like I said, and I'll be honest, 1 year ago we were struggling to sell 5 gallons a week. Word of mouth, it just absolutely exploded. And like I said, we're big enough eventually to get to where I quit, because we also both work full-time jobs. So we work full-time jobs, get up in the morning, we milk once a day. So they get fed in the morning, and then we come in and milk at night. We typically raise stocker calves as well. So we buy those at 250 pounds at the stockyard. We vaccinate, get them on a good feed program. We castrate them if they're bulls. Sorry. And then at around 600 pounds, we sell them. This year they're doing really well.
Okay.
And it makes me question buying more milk cows and not buying stocker calves.
Well, the prices are up right now.
Yes, they
Cattle
are.
prices are up. Have you always farmed? Have you always been in the cattle game? I know you said you had horses. You kind of grew up with horses.
I actually grew up about 6 miles down the road here on a horse breeding farm. We had paints and quarter horses.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, and I don't know how you would say, a little less scared. A
little more risk taking.
Exactly. We trained horses, and that's actually how I bought my first truck, was by training horses for several years. But that's how I started. When I graduated high school, went to NC State, and I ended up was going to be a vet. That was always my lifelong dream, and then I got introduced to organic chemistry. So I started at Ridgecrest Farm. It's about a mile down the road. Started working in chicken houses. Hated it.
Uh-huh.
Got onto the beef cow side, and that is where my love for cows started.
You and I have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So I grew up on a cattle farm, though.
Yeah.
It's the only difference. But I went to Purdue, got in animal science, was going to be a vet,
Yeah.
got into my first organic chem class and
Yep.
said, no, I have no
took it-
interest in this.
I took it 3 times, and I finally passed it with a D, and I'm like, you know what?
It's not worth it.
Nope, not worth it.
Yeah, that one, it was my first time. I passed with a D, and I was like, you know what? D's get degrees around here, and that's where we're
There
going
you
with it. And then I worked at a commercial pig farm for a little while.
Nice.
So until we found our farm
Gotcha.
and then started doing direct to consumer. So I love seeing the similarities
Right.
that you and I have. So
Yeah.
you got introduced into cattle. Now, where does that bring you here with your milk? Where does that kind of tie in to you seeing, like, why did you get a milk cow?
Well, like I said, I started working at the stockyard. I was in a terrible job. I was a manager. I absolutely hated it. And I decided that money was just not worth the headache and the stress of that. Like I said, I started working for Mark Bray down here. I started working at the stockyard, and I started seeing these cows come in, these dairy cows come in. And a friend of mine had called me and said, hey, I'm hauling in a really great little Jersey cow, which is Carol down there.
Yeah.
She was a personal milk cow. She probably would be great to start calves on. So being able to, I bought her from the stockyard. She was a $300 cow back in 2019.
Wow.
And at the time, we were getting calves for $5, $10, $20 a piece. And so most of them that had a good start done really well. And just like I said, that's where my heart is, and that's how all this started. So I had moved back home because I used to live up on the mountain in Virginia. When I got back down here, I ended up with, now we have 7. I mean,
it's grown
like,
on its own.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a collection. So like I said, we started out with nurse cows. And we would put orphaned calves or calves that were in the stockyard, or say if a farmer called and say, hey, I've got a cow that's died, or I've got a cow that won't take their calf, and we would take them and give them a really good start, leave them on cows for typically 12, it just depending on the calf, 12 to 20 weeks, and then wean them, and then at that point put them on feed, sell them as stocker calves to go on into feedlots, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And then about a year and a half ago, I honestly just had my daughter. While I was pregnant, I had put on 80 pounds. And before I started, he calls me Ronda Rousey. Which, I mean, I worked on the farm all the time.
For
so.
sure. Yeah.
But
There's something about being pregnant with a girl, because the same thing happened with me.
Yeah, dude, I put on so much weight. And afterwards, I come out here one morning and I was feeding, and he was inside with our daughter, and I was like, why am I getting ready to go to the store to buy milk when I have a milk cow? And so I started researching, and I mean seriously researching.
Yeah.
Raw milk is a very scary thing to people.
It can be, and it's crazy. It's a crazy market.
It is. And the reason that all of that started was back when we started to get civilized and started working into late 1800s, early 1900s. We had cows in really bad conditions, in very nasty conditions, diseased cows that they were selling milk from, and that's where all this started.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out a way, I can't remember the guy that done it, but back in the 30s, they figured out that if you pasteurize the milk, it was safe for consumption for large amounts being produced at one time.
Yeah. And they were also working on the Industrial Revolution and getting people in an area all together.
And so it became one of those things that, I mean, now here we are in the 21st century, and we're in 2024 now. We're all starting to realize that getting back to our roots is where we need to be.
Yeah.
And yeah,
exactly.
It's a play on words on your podcast.
Yeah.
But that's how we started this, and I told my husband, I was like, I have to lose this baby weight. I've got to get healthier. Why am I going to the store to buy milk when we have a milk cow?
You were like, why am I not drinking raw milk?
Yeah.
And that's what started it going. But how did you realize that people would buy it from you?
Oh, well, I didn't.
I didn't know.
It wasn't a let's start selling raw milk thing. It was we have a milk cow here, and we're going to provide for our family. And my daughter is 17 months, and she drinks raw milk. We are now, granted, we are very micro dairy farmers, but I don't like milk.
You don't like it?
I know it's crazy. I cook with it. I'll eat it in my cereal. Now as I'm on this like baby weight loss journey, I don't eat cereal and I don't eat a lot of processed stuff.
Right.
And, we try to grow a lot of our vegetables but yeah, I mean, he loves it.
Your husband?
Justin loves it. Yeah, Josie loves it. My daughter. I just don't like it.
Did you like pasteurized milk before? No. Okay, so you just weren't a milk fan in general, and that's okay. That's okay.
Nope, just don't like milk. And like I said,
but it is good to cook with.
Crazy. Yeah.
Well, and there's yogurt and kefir and all the extra things you can make from
things. But I mean, and if I have a glass of chocolate milk, I'm good with that. But if we're drinking just plain old milk, I just can't do
That's
it.
funny. That's funny.
So Justin and Josie are my guinea pigs when if we get a new cow in, because we first of all, we test.
Yep.
And we make sure that we're milking good milk. I'm like, okay, what do you think of it? Because all cows, all breeds are different.
Right.
Holsteins have much less cream.
Yep. Whereas
Jerseys and even Brown Swiss have a lot more cream. And the Hazel, one of the Jerseys we're milking now, her cream is so yellow.
Really?
Yes, it's beautiful. We test it out ourselves, and then typically we wait 2 weeks after it's tested to start selling it.
Gotcha.
So, but there's a big difference in late lactation milk, whereas Sugar that we just dried up, towards the end of her lactation, she had very little cream, and she's a Jersey, and it was white, almost blue.
Okay.
Old timers used to call it blue milk because it had almost a blue tint.
There's a lot of underlying chemistry going on that we don't understand yet.
Exactly.
That's happening. So you started drinking the raw milk, and then did people just find you? How did that happen?
Honestly, I had a girl that we went to second grade together, and then I moved schools, and we rode horses together. We reconnected on Facebook years later, and I think she'd probably seen some of my Facebook posts and was like, "Do you know anybody that sells raw milk?" And I was like, "Well, I do." Just out of the blue, I mean. And I started my very first customer ever. Her name was Regina, which she's still with us. She lives in Winston and actually drives out here about every 2 or 3 weeks to get milk.
Wow.
But that's how we started. And I just started doing little Facebook posts here and there. Like I said, we had to figure out exactly how to be legal about it.
Right.
Because you're not technically selling the milk.
Right.
You're
a herd share.
You are sharing a share, or you are selling a share in the herd, and then you are selling not the milk, but the labor and the feed and the board of the animal that produces that gallon.
Right. Cute red tape to jump through.
Yeah,
exactly. For sure.
Like I said, we went from struggling to sell maybe 5 gallons a week to now I keep adding cows because I don't know if we can meet demand.
Yeah. So you have that demand, but to get back to like your heart and soul, the milk thing is kicking off, and that's helping you. You said that so I'm trying to tie 3 things together here because I find it also interesting, and especially when you're on a farm, things aren't just like, you don't just have one source of farming,
correct.
Whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So you work off farm still.
Yes.
You've got the milk that you're selling, but your heart is in the
calves.
The calves. So how does all of that play together?
I'll be honest. When we started milking cows, or when we started raising calves, like I said, that's where my heart is, and that's probably where my heart will underlying. That's probably where it'll always be.
Yeah.
But milking cows has brought a whole new, I don't know. It's a whole new experience.
Yeah.
And like I said, we've done it for about 1.5 years now. And I started out hand milking.
Okay.
And then of course we've moved up over several months into cheap milker, and now we've got pretty serious about it. And now we have a 30-gallon cooling tank. And even though calf raising is one of my favorite things, it's brought on this whole new thing of being able to milk cows and connecting with the animal. And like I said, the 3 cows that we're milking now are very young. They're all, 2 of them are 3-year-olds. One of them's a 2-year-old.
Okay.
But like I said, as a kid, I trained horses.
Yeah.
And I trained a lot of problem horses that other people couldn't deal with. Now I don't really want to get on a stupid horse's back anymore because, I got to have my body to
Yeah.
to work.
Yeah, for sure.
But starting to train an animal to do something that they've never done and being able to connect with them, and both of us have a mutual understanding that this is our end goal. This is what we're trying to get done. And if we both work together to do it, that's kind of a magical thing.
Yeah. So you
So-
said that you're thinking about buying calves then. Do you anticipate the milk bringing you home full time and taking over income and bringing here? That's your plan?
That's my plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
like that.
I have a 5-year plan that we're going to probably have about 10 milk cows, and who knows if we're going to be milking all of those. But what we are not milking, I still want to be able to start calves. And
Okay.
this is just a temporary. We've had to set this up until we could get something else set up for them.
Because can we walk that way?
Yeah, sure.
Because you said that you have like 40 acres here.
Yeah.
But you aren't using it all. And I kind of saw over the hill. Is that what's been logged?
It has, and so none of this over
Okay.
here is with the farm itself, but everything in the back has.
Okay.
And we rent this. We started out, honestly, like I said, we were not milking cows at the time when we found this place. And
Okay.
I've been hounding these people to let me buy this place, but
Oh, okay.
it's 3 sisters who own it. Their
Okay.
father passed away about 2 years ago. He is the one who started this. And I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of places that are a little run down. We're still slowly working on things, but when we got here, other than this little fence here, there wasn't a stitch of fence on this place.
Okay.
So we have started basically everything from scratch.
Okay.
Other than
so-
our little lot here.
That part back there that's
Yeah.
been logged, that's what you'd. So you could definitely add cows in the future.
Yeah.
Kind of add to your pasture
Yeah.
a little bit and get more.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of potential
And
here.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
If like I said, if we're ever able to buy this place, what I would love to do is get this. It's like I said, this is probably 25 or 30 acres back here. Get it cleaned up, turn it into pasture.
Yeah.
And use whatever we need for hay, and start to do regenerative farming. So being
Okay.
able to rotate animals.
Yeah.
To where your pasture benefits from that.
Right.
We just don't, I mean, we're getting there.
Yeah.
And we are able to do that. I actually, when I buy calves in the fall, sell in the spring, and our hay field, after we get our second cutting off of it, we let it grow and then rotate them on that hay field to where they're fertilizing and they're
Right.
in a more concentrated area, but when they have grazed that down, we move them to a next section.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do the whole place like that. We're just not quite there yet.
Yeah. No, I love that I'm here talking with you in the middle of that.
Right?
Because I think it's so important for people to understand that you don't just show up and start doing
Yeah.
things. And
It takes a
sometimes
lot
you
of work.
can't just show up and start
Yeah.
doing things. You're renting this place. It's not cleared off. You still have an off-farm job.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of other things, but you're doing what you can now to set yourself up
To be able
for
to
the
do
future.
it. Exactly.
I just love
Yeah.
that. And what do you think then about this raw milk craze? Like, it's not something you grew up with, because the dairy farmer that I bought my milk from in Indiana, they were all raised on raw milk. The whole family for
And
generations.
I'll be honest.
So she had so much to say about it, but I see people our age getting into it and coming
Yeah.
back and saying, like you said, going back to your roots,
Yeah.
like, no, this is actually really good for us. What do you see in that?
Honestly, first of all, I want to start off by saying that there is a place for our current dairy industry.
Right.
We have to have our current systems in place to be able to feed the world. Otherwise, we couldn't do it.
Right.
But I also look at, you have so many people that are lactose intolerant, and the enzyme, I think it's called lactase. I'm not well versed in that.
Yeah. Lactase.
But lactase is literally what they test for. And if you go to the Raw Milk Institute, and that has actually done a recent training with them. It's rawme, rawmi.com. I've done a risk management training with them.
Oh,
But
wow.
they have a wealth of knowledge.
Okay.
And eventually that's another one of my 5-year goals, is to be rawme certified.
Okay, that's one that I haven't heard of yet. So that's interesting.
It's like I said, it's the Raw Milk Institute. It's
Okay.
based out of California, but they just have a wealth of knowledge in being able to produce raw milk safely on a mass consumer basis. They've
Yeah.
got a dairy out there that's probably, I think they're around 300 to 400 cows,
Wow.
and it's 100% raw dairy.
That's awesome.
but being able to look at the benefits of, and this is not me saying this is what raw milk will do for you, but personally, like I said, when I started this weight loss journey again, I started doing protein shakes because of course I can do protein shakes with milk and I'm cool with it.
Right.
Never had issues before I had my child with heartburn, ever. And I'm like, I don't, because you become more aware of the things that Tums, for example, they're really not that great for you.
No.
Especially when you're having to take them every day. Yeah. And when I started doing my protein shakes, it completely my indigestion completely went away.
Wow.
And so that was something that, like I said, it's a personal experience. It's not something I'm saying that will, it's a benefit for anyone else. But my mom as well actually mentioned that. And I'm like, I never made that connection. But after about 2 weeks of drinking it, I mean, just the benefits of being able to, the proteins and the enzymes, all of that stuff that is burnt out during pasteurization that you still are able to consume.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at raw milk as a superfood.
Yeah. I mean, you can straight up live on raw milk.
Yeah.
Like, people have raw milk diets. Not that I'm not advocating to not eat food.
Yeah,
but there are people who do like a raw milk diet, and that's all they intake is just raw milk. And it's like for babies.
That's what they
raw
survive
milk.
on.
That's what they eat.
Exactly. And actually, Justin and my dad built this for me probably 8 months ago. You get plans of something and then you start to use it and you're like, well, this is what I would adjust. This is what I would do different. So I would have made it a little more narrow. I'm glad I didn't, though, because my brown Swiss cows are huge. Yeah. So they fit in it well. My Jersey girls, I just get them to kind of scoot over towards me a little bit. And, but yeah, so we bought a Molasti back in, I think end of summer last year. And I love this thing.
It's nice.
It's very easy to use.
It takes very a little portable.
Yes, it takes a little bit for the cows to get used to it because it is kind of loud. But we roll it into our basement. We've got a full basement. And I've got an industrial sink down there, and we're able to sanitize, hang everything up, let it air dry. We store, like I said, before we were doing ice baths on milk. I got so tired of doing that.
Yeah.
And then we got to a point where we had so much capacity that we were going to have to buy an ice machine. And I'm like, do you buy an ice machine, even though it has a dual purpose, or do we just take the plunge and buy a milk tank? So we bought a 30-gallon milk tank anticipating that in another year we would probably start filling it up. That's awesome. Yeah, hopefully.
That is awesome.
Right now we're only at about 7 or 8 gallons a day. That's about max what we do.
And how do people pick up the milk? So you said you're doing herd shares. Do people just come here and pick it up? Do you have pickup locations?
We're pretty lax about that. So everybody does come here.
Okay.
I will meet people. You have to be careful because we're right on the Virginia line. So you got to stay in North Carolina for that.
Like you have to stay in North Carolina. Like they can come to you, but you have to stay in North Carolina.
They can come from wherever they want to.
Okay.
I can't cross. I'm not supposed to cross state lines. If you've ever looked into that law, it's very gray, and I don't want to get in trouble for anything.
Yeah, no,
I want to be as legal as possible.
Absolutely.
So yeah, a lot of times I can meet people. I have a homeschool group, and I call them the homeschool group, but it's a bunch of moms. They all homeschool their kids. They're right over in Virginia. There's I sell them about 10 gallons a week.
Nice.
So over, probably 2 days, I'll gather their milk. And like I said, now we have got our coolant tank. And what it does is it is able to keep the cream incorporated. So when you pour it, you don't have cream up top and skim milk on the bottom.
Because it's got like a mixer in it, right? That like just goes really slow.
Yep, an agitator.
Yeah.
So it keeps it mixed up, and then we can pour it straight into jars, and it's already cold, and we can throw it into the fridge. Now we struggle a little bit because, like I said, we just don't have the ice capacity.
Right.
So we're putting a few gallons in this fridge and a few gallons in, and we have a basement fridge, a barn fridge, and if you see that hot point over there, it doesn't look like it works.
Oh, nice. Old school.
Exactly. And what's crazy is there was a building on the farm when we first moved here, and I seen that thing in there, and I was like, if nothing else, we're going to use that for storage.
Can I open
golly, yeah, go for it. By golly,
yeah. You got a thermometer in there and everything?
I do have a thermometer,
yeah. That works awesome.
Yeah, but if we plugged that thing in, and I was just amazed that it worked. So A lot of times what we'll do too, where we don't have the ice capacity, is we'll put things in freezers.
Okay. Like
For,
the jars?
Yes, for about an hour,
Oh.
and then transfer to the fridge. The biggest thing with milk is to get it to last, you want it to get below 38 degrees within an hour.
Yeah.
Which is, we're getting to a point where we're not able to do that because we're producing so much.
Yeah. So these sound more like just growing pains.
Yeah.
Than any, which, I mean, not to lessen them and not to make them higher than what they are, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
Like you're having these good problems to
Right.
have because you've got a customer base that's growing.
Yeah.
And people around here are really picking up on
Yeah.
that. Is this, now you mentioned earlier, this is like a very rural area.
Very much.
And this is,
Yeah.
I mean, we drove for an hour and didn't see a town.
Yeah.
So this is very rural. Do you see people in this area? Like you said, you've got people in Winston coming.
Well-
but are people around here looking for milk?
Yeah.
Is it like a food desert? What is the topography around here?
Honestly, within a 2-mile stretch here, we have milk. The Brays have beef. And then Kim and Greg, which are two of my good friends that live down the road, they sell beef and they sell eggs. So, like, you could hit up just about every food group within the next two
Okay.
miles from here. Most people around here grow their own food. Even though we are trying to make it a profitable business, I still want people to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like I said, I grew up here, moved away for several years and finally just came back home. But there's not a lot of jobs unless you drive at least an hour to Winston or to Mount Airy, or maybe to Martinsville. There's a local feed mill here. Otherwise, you don't have anything. And so it's not necessarily a poorer part of the country, but at the same time, we're right on that limit.
Yeah.
And so I want people to be able to reap the benefits of the milk,
Right.
but still be able to afford it.
Well, it kind of comes back to what I heard at the farmer's market a few times and it was especially during COVID. We didn't change our prices during COVID.
Yeah.
And we thought in that same mindset, people need to eat.
Yep.
Our prices didn't really change much. Our feed went up a little bit.
Yeah.
But we were okay. So our margins were fine. We're like, we're going to put our margins where we want to put our margins, and we can keep it at this price. And I had farmers telling me, well, you're leaving money on the table. And I'm like, just because some people can afford it doesn't mean that they should pay that.
Right.
And so it kind of aligns me with your thinking here, that just because you can pay $20 a gallon in Winston doesn't
just because you
necessarily
can
mean
get that much.
Yeah,
Exactly.
doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Not that you shouldn't. I'm not trying to say either that people have to do it a certain way. I just
I mean,
I admire what you're trying to do for your community.
Yeah.
Where if you're trying to sell to people that are around you, you know what they can afford.
Yeah.
Then and selling
and
it
I'll
to
be
that.
honest. I mean, if we had to buy milk for what we sold it for, it would be difficult for us. But at the same time, as our generation is learning, I don't want to get too much into the government here, but not everything on our shelves are the best things
Right.
for us. And
Yeah.
and I think our generation more so than any other generation, because our parents grew up in that era of, grocery stores starting to get big, Walmart starting to pop up.
Yeah.
It became the norm because life became a lot simpler when we could just go to the store and get what we wanted. And our grandparents, of course, grew their own food, but our parents before us got out of that.
Yeah.
And I feel like, are starting to see the benefit of being able to produce our own food and know what goes into it,
Yeah.
what we feed our animals, what we feed our gardens,
Yeah.
and what we get out of that. And
Yeah.
I feel like that, like I said, our generation is kind of starting to wake up and realize that not everything is always what it seems to
Yeah,
be.
we can
Just
do things a
because-
little different.
And just because it's easier doesn't mean it's better.
I love that you are in the transition of building and that you're trying to do it right too. You're not cutting corners.
Right.
You're doing things by the book. You're getting the equipment so that you have,
Yeah.
I mean, buying a 30-gallon tank before you actually need it, I'm sure that's like a lot.
It was.
Yeah.
We looked at a 15-gallon and a 30-gallon. And it's like I told Justin, I said, a year ago we were struggling to sell 5 gallons. Now we're struggling to sell 40 a week. And we actually have a small waiting list, but I am I'm maxed out on, I don't want to get too many cows for the amount of space that we have. And so I'm trying to wait until the rest of my girls have their calves and we're able to produce a little more milk. We also, my neighbor across the road, their cow just out of the blue died. And so we have been given their calf milk. And honestly, we traded out. Like, he comes over and helps us do stuff. And their calf gets milk and their family gets milk, and we do a lot of bartering.
Yeah,
you know, we've got
awesome.
a family that we do, they bring us meat chickens and we trade milk, eggs, which, I mean, we typically raise our own beef, but I feel like we're going to have to start getting back to that a lot, is bartering. And like you said, just being able to kind of help I mean, I could sell, that's 7 gallons a week that we could sell to somebody, but it's more important to me to have the community and the friendship and the bartering that we are able to do with one another than the money off the milk.
So just what you're building, I think, is so cool. And in the future, I would love to come back, because I think seeing you in a couple of years, and I really love too how you're like trying to build slowly.
Right.
Like you just said, that you don't want to get too many cows than what you can handle. Just because the demand is there doesn't mean that I have to meet it. How do you pull yourself back to that? Because I think that all too often, and this is myself included, I've asked a lot of farmers this because I did this, where I'm like, the demand is there, let's meet the demand. We need to build the supply to meet the demand, and we got burnt out.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
How do you pull yourself back?
We're not to a point where either of us can quit our jobs. And I don't know if we'll ever be to a point where we both quit our jobs, but if one of us is able to do that, I want to do that at a sustainable rate.
Right.
It's like you said, I mean, you can and that's another thing too. I mean, we have an old 641 Workmaster, an old Ford tractor. We don't have a front end loader a lot of times, and this is something, our neighbor has a front end loader, and if we need that, we can kind of trade that out. But I don't want to overload myself and get to a point where I get so burnt out on it that I just throw my hands up and say I'm done.
Right.
Because although your passion is in what you're doing, you can get sick of it quick.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So I don't want to, I mean, like I said, if I could stay out here with these cows all day long, that's probably what I would do. Not that it's practical, but they say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, but I don't necessarily think that's true, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff outside of milking, outside of raising calves, outside of feeding, but I just don't want to push myself to a limit to where it's not enjoyable anymore.
For sure. Well, and that leads me to another question then. So if your heart and passion is in the calves, the milk kind of supplies the income that we all have to have money, because welcome to the real world. Maybe that gives you the ability to do that, to raise the calves.
Well, and that's the thing about it too. I mean, it takes a little bit of time. My problem is I get attached to them. It's kind of like Cookie over there. I mean, Cookie never went anywhere because I got too attached to her. She's turned out to be a great little milk cow, but sometimes that's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to let go of them. And even though you still get a return by selling them as stocker calves, to go on to feedlots or wherever they go to, you still at the same time I have to keep myself reined in, and that sometimes is hard to do.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I love your ability to ultimately do it.
Right.
To pull yourself back.
And that's the thing. I mean, we're able to do a little bit of everything, and if for whatever reason milk sales go down, I can take a cow and put calves on it. Right. Most of my cows here, I know, will take calves.
Yeah. It's kind of setting yourself up for like a buffer. Like if you can't sell milk, you've got calves. If you don't have calves, you've got milk.
Exactly.
And it's like a give and take.
And at that point, if we need to increase how many we milk, we can wait until we wean calves and turn that cow into through the correct process.
Right.
Be able to turn that cow back into a milk cow.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
You got cushion either way.
Yeah. Did you set that up on purpose?
Yeah.
To do it? You did. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it that way, because if you've got calves, especially the way the market is right now, you've got a savings account. But if you don't have the calves, you have the milk that you can market and sell. And What a great idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, this is how it started. I started out with dairy cows, and we put babies on them, and a lot of times I would let them raise them for quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just depending on the calf and how well the calf was doing.
If the calf was a little sickly, you'd let them stay on the cow a little bit
Exactly.
longer, gain some extra weight. You wouldn't just pull them at a certain time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if you have a group of calves that they're just not wanting to eat feed well, you leave them on the cow a little longer.
Yeah.
That's where they're getting most of their nutrition from until they can start to learn to eat the feed.
Yeah.
And turn that into their main source of nutrition. Feed being grain, hay, grass, whatever.
Right, right.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very tailored to them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that you set it up that way. I think that it adds some flexibility. Like I think of myself and our future homestead, farmstead, whatever it is in the
Right.
future, whenever we settle down, that having that in the back of my head of knowing that there's flexibility there.
Yeah.
And that we can tap into that.
Right.
And that's just such a good idea. So thank you for sharing that, because that's awesome.
Not a problem.
So thank you for showing me around and talking with me and not letting your horses trample me, even though you said that they wouldn't. But
They're pains. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I don't
You're
really
fine.
know why I expected them to do better than what they did.
You're fine. Thank you for having me out. I know that you said that being on camera makes you a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
But you've done great, and I just thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming out.
So I feel like when we set these farm tours up, I try not to do like much backstory research, right? Because I want to show up and it just be a conversation. I really want it to be organic, and I don't want to force anything. But we couldn't have ended that any better by knowing that she gave herself cushion room on purpose. I mean, I think that that is perfect in farming when it's so volatile. Being able to have just something to fall back on if things change. It's just so great. I'm so glad that she shared that and took time to share that with us. So we've always got more to come for you guys. I think we're just gonna keep building. I know that this video is gonna come out in like 3 weeks from when I'm recording it. So yeah, just keep showing up to the live streams, keep commenting, and we're just gonna keep bringing you guys farmers just like this. We're just going all over. So thanks for showing up with us today.